Good morning, everybody. Everybody having fun? All right. What a unique venue. If you haven't seen it, I'd actually encourage maybe at one of the breaks to come up, look up. It's pretty wild. To think Snoop Dogg was on the same stage as me 3 weeks ago. I can guarantee it smells a little different today than it did 3 weeks ago. Okay, one of the things that we love to do at Beck Tech is say a big thank you to everybody in our user base. So I'd like to start by just saying a big thank you. I know everybody's traveled either locally, regionally, nationally to come to the show. It takes a big effort. I know everybody's busy. So from the bottom of our hearts, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming to Dallas. Thank you for coming to our first Precon World event. So please join me, just thank you. All right, the second thing we always like to do is give praise where praise is due. So annually we give out 2 awards to customers in our customer base. Unfortunately, one of our awardees at the last minute had a little bit of an emergency and couldn't make it today. So we're just going to present one of them today, but it is actually what we consider our most prestigious award. It's what we call our Vision Award. And our Vision Award, I'm going to read it, is presented to a company or individual who has sought out innovation and acted upon their ideas to help bridge today's construction industry to future ideals. They see where our industry is lacking and provide solutions to issues instead of waiting on someone else to provide answers. Vision Award recipients are pioneers in our industry and leaders in their companies. This particular individual is someone I've known for a long time. I did have hair and it wasn't gray when I met him. This individual is a big champion of model-based estimating and has actually spent the last at least 4 years working with the BIM Forum on defining standards around level of detail that will enable pre-construction teams to actually take more advantage from models. So this year's awardee is a good friend of mine, Brent Pilgrim. So Brent, will you please come up to the stage? All right, man. Thank you very much. Congratulations on everything you've done.
Thank you. Oh, that's awesome.
All right.
I appreciate it.
All right. All right. So I've been tasked with giving some opening remarks, which is not my favorite thing to do, but I'm going to start with a story. It is a personal story. My story starts in 1944. And despite my team saying I was around then, it's not my story. The individual that I'm going to tell you a story about is a guy called Jim Aylward. And Jim graduated high school at 13 years of age in England prior to World War II. And Jim, like a lot of people of his era, went into the trades and actually became a carpenter. When the war broke out, Jim volunteered to join what's in England called the Royal Engineers. You can sort of think of it as the Army Corps of Engineers as we have here in the US. In 1944, after D-Day, a lot of people don't know that a lot of the bridges that span the rivers across Europe were actually being blown up by the Germans to prevent the Allied troops pursuing Germany back into Berlin. And this individual, Jim, was part of a group of individuals who used something called the Bailey Bridge. And the Bailey Bridge was a pre-manufactured bridge. It was the first of its kind, and was really, as the Allied troops were blowing up the bridges, Jim and his team were rebuilding the bridges. Jim was actually my grandfather. And I remember sitting on my grandfather's knee long after 1944, despite what my team says, telling me stories. And the stories were about how him and his band of brothers, so to speak, were fixing the things that the Germans blew up. Back then, it was pretty easy to see the work that Jim and the Royal Engineers and others were doing, tens of thousands of men across Europe rebuilding the bridges. After the war, Jim went in and spent time in the bombed out cities across the United Kingdom. London literally was leveled. I have a picture of my grandfather and it's, as far as the eye can see, it's just rubble. Jim built what was called the new cities. The new cities were, as the name implies, new high-rise cities that today form sort of the infrastructure of the United Kingdom. So why am I telling you this story? For me, Jim was my hero. Jim was the reason I got into construction. Back when Jim was building bridges, rebuilding the cities of the UK, it was pretty clear and obvious that Jim would cut some wood, Jim would help build a building, and you would see the result of what Jim did. Today, it's harder sometimes to see the results of what we do. We have, you know, huge cities, and sometimes we're building small projects. They can go amiss. I'm probably the only nerd that drives down the highway, and anytime I see a construction project, I'm the guy or girl looking at the project. But today, sometimes it's hard to see the fruits of your labor. In Precon, it's even harder. You don't build the buildings, you plan the buildings. The hospitals, the schools, the data centers. But I would actually contend, and I've been a believer of this my entire career, you are the equivalent of Jim. You are the heroes in the industry. Why? You're not just building the buildings, you're making those buildings better. When you build a hospital, or your colleagues build a hospital, it's through your hard work to make that hospital happen. It's not easy trying to reduce risk, manage risk, make it hit budget, ideally propose value engineering options that make the project better. But you do that, and you do it day in and day out without necessarily seeing the fruits of your labor come to fruition. To me, you are the real heroes in our industry. It is something that, we all get into this industry through different ways. Mine was through my grandfather and sort of the experience he had. So to me, the future of our industry is not construction, it's pre-construction. If we can eliminate the low-value activities that we're forced to do today, and instead spend more time figuring out how to make those buildings better and better and better and better, we're not just going to build schools and hospitals and data centers. We're going to save lives. We're going to educate the next generation. We're going to create the fabric of society. So to me, what you do is the most important thing, bar none, in the construction cycle. All right, second thing I wanted to say was some of you know that I was a swimmer. And two things I actually learned from my swim career. While having goals, and I would argue the goal of everyone in this room is to make the world a better place, I think it's easy sometimes to lose sight of the day-to-day. It's almost like miss the forest for the trees. The two things I learned from my swimming career were, number one, enjoy the journey. The journey is probably the most important part. It's the thing that we feel day in and day out. The second thing that I learned, swimming is a unique sport where you compete individually, but you train as a team. So you're swimming and training against your competitors. Much like this group here today. Many of you compete, but I would attest that my lesson from swimming was if we can raise the bar of everybody on the team, everybody across the board, there's plenty of room for all of us to benefit from that. And to me, one of the big things about Precon World is building community. I feel like there is a huge opportunity in this room, in our user base, to all win. And we can win together by sharing, being open, enjoying the journey, having fun. When I look around the room, I see passion. When I was talking to people last night, maybe shouting at people last night, unfortunately with the music, I see a lot of energy. I see a lot of excitement about pre-construction. Not just what it is today, but what it could be. And that's exciting. I also get excited when I see customers, people that I've known for many, many cases, coming up to me with an idea on how to make what we do better. If we can make it better for everybody, the cream rises to the top. So innovation, I see that in our customer base. And then the last thing that I see around the room, and it excites me, I see people that genuinely care about this industry, that really do believe that they have an opportunity to make the world a better place. And for that, I applaud everybody. And I want you to know that our intent from Precon World is to start a journey where we feel more like a community, And together, by sharing wins, losses, good stories, bad stories, strengths, weaknesses, everything, I believe that collectively everybody will benefit. So our intent today is to share some of those best practices, some things that don't work, but instead of it being like you get at large conferences where there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, I challenge people, ask direct questions. If something doesn't feel right, ask it. How are they doing that? Let's have direct, honest conversations to try and make this community better. So with that, a lot of words, a lot of stories. Thank you again for coming, and I'll hand it over to our MC for the day, Summer Brattain. So thank you, everybody.